A radical experiment in South Australia's outback has shown that exposing vulnerable species like the bilby to predators before they're released into the wild helps their survival rate. The research by UNSW ecologists and the Arid Recovery Group found bilbies that lived with feral cats were warier of potential threats when released, compared to another group which lived predator-free. Professor Mike Letnick from the University of New South Wales says the idea came from cane toads.
It's a big problem with introduced species all over Australia coming in, and for me it actually came about because of cane toads that invaded and killed the freshwater crocodiles that I was studying on.
Okay.
And a lot of the freshwater crocodiles survived, and we thought, well, what is it about those crocodiles that makes them better? And we think that they must have evolved to deal with cane toads. And then we were thinking we could do the same thing with marsupials that are actually having a much worse time because of foxes and cats. And so we set up this big experimental area in South Australia, and we introduced very low numbers of cats into this area with many bilbies and betons, which were another endangered marsupial, with the idea that the cats will encourage learning and pose some natural selection to make better marsupials, ones that are more able to tolerate the predators.
Yeah, so the initial phase of this, you had some bilbies in a fenced-off area with feral animals and others in an area without. Was it tough, we're looking at these cute little things now, was it tough putting a heap of these bilbies in a fenced-off area with feral cats, knowing that a couple of them were going to be dinner for these feral cats?
It was a tough decision knowing that some of them won't make it, but in the end, what we really want is to have animals in the wild. So we want wild animals, and ultimately we'll have more animals if we can have wild animals. If we rely on fenced areas just to protect them from foxes and cats, then one of the big problems we'll have is that we'll have very few animals, and also maintaining those fences is very difficult. And so ultimately, if the funding doesn't come through, the fence falls down and the animals are gone. So we really, if we're going to have these animals in the long term, we need to make them coexist with cats and foxes.
So what were the raw numbers of those bilbies in the initial phase that you put in the different areas, and how many bilbies did you lose in that initial phase?
We don't know how many we lost, but what we do know, we put in, I think, 40 initially, and those animals bred up. They were able to breed up, even though they were with cats, so their numbers actually increased.
Okay, and so what were the raw numbers of bilbies released in phase 2, and what were the survival rates of the two groups?
So we did an experiment where we had, I think it was 20 and 20 from the two groups, and we put them into another environment, into a common environment where there were some cats. And I can't remember the exact numbers because it went over time, but the animals that had lived with cats had better survival. And before we put them in, we also did tests on the animals, and we worked out that the animals that lived with the cats were actually more wary as well. They were much more nervous and shy, and we think that overall they've got the right stuff.
Mike Letnick there. A man